Sarah Chun checked her equipment one last time as the transport ship moved toward the drop zone. Her hands were steady, but her heart was beating fast. Around her, 5 other cadets from different alien species prepared for what many called the hardest test in the Galactic Military Academy. Zarian 7 coming into view, the pilot announced. Through the small window, Sarah saw a gray and purple moon covered in strange crystal formations. Dark clouds moved across its surface, and she could see flashes of lightning in the distance. The Kaloran cadet next to her, a tall being with blue skin and 6 arms, was checking his weapons for the 3rd time. His name was Vex, and he had been training for this moment his entire life. 73% failure rate, he said in his clicking language. The translator device made his words sound cold and mechanical. Most cadets call for rescue within the first week. Sarah nodded but didn't say much. She had read all the reports about Zarian 7. The moon was home to creatures that attacked anything that landed on the surface. Crystal wolves hunted in packs and could cut through metal with their sharp formations. Acid tunnelers lived underground and dissolved anything that entered their territory. Shadow stalkers were the worst. They were invisible predators that could kill silently. "Remember," said Commander Vex over the communication system, "this is a survival test. You have 2 weeks to prove you can handle hostile environments. Each of you will be dropped in a different area. No contact with each other or with us unless there's a real emergency. Your job is simple. Stay alive." The Zentari cadet, a small creature covered in gray fur, was shaking. Her people were known for being smart, but they were not fighters. "What if the shadow stalkers find us?" she whispered. "Then you fight or you call for rescue," said the Draconi cadet. He was large and covered in red scales. His people were warriors who loved battle. This test separates the strong from the weak. Sarah looked at her gear. Unlike the others, she hadn't packed many weapons. She had basic tools, medical supplies, and something the others thought was strange, small packets of food that could be used as treats or offerings. Her instructors on Earth had taught her that sometimes the best way to survive was not to fight everything that moved. The ship began to shake as it entered the moon's atmosphere. The pilot's voice came through again. "First drop zone approaching. Cadet Vex, prepare for deployment." One by one, the alien cadets jumped from the ship. Each had their own plan. Vex would find high ground and build a fortress. The Zentari would dig underground and hide. The Draconi planned to hunt the local creatures before they could hunt him. Final drop zone. "Cadet Chun, you're up." Sarah stood at the edge of the ship and looked down at the alien landscape below. Crystal formations stuck out of the ground like frozen lightning. In the distance, she could see caves and canyons. The air looked thick and greenish. Her breathing mask would help, but she would need to be careful. "Good luck, human," the pilot said. "Try not to become something's dinner." Sarah jumped from the ship and felt the rush of falling through alien air. Her parachute opened, and she floated down toward the strange moon's surface. As she got closer, she could hear sounds, howling, clicking, and something that sounded like singing coming from the crystal formations. She landed in a small valley surrounded by purple crystal trees. The ground was soft and covered in a thin layer of what looked like silver sand. Her scanner showed the area was relatively safe, but she knew that could change quickly. As Sarah gathered her parachute, she heard a sound behind her. She turned and saw something moving between the crystal trees. It looked like a wolf, but its body was made of the same purple crystal as the trees. Its eyes glowed with inner light, and when it moved, it made musical sounds. The creature stopped about 30 feet away and watched her. Sarah's training told her to prepare her weapon, but something made her hesitate. The crystal wolf wasn't acting like a predator. It was curious. Sarah slowly sat down and made herself look smaller. She had read that many Earth animals saw standing upright as a threat. Maybe alien animals were the same way. The wolf tilted its head and made a soft musical sound. "Hello there," Sarah said quietly. Her translator probably couldn't handle the crystal wolf's language, but maybe her tone would come through. "I'm not here to hurt you." The wolf took a step closer. Its crystal body caught the strange light from Zarian 7's sky and threw colorful reflections everywhere. It was beautiful in a way that made Sarah's chest feel tight. Other sounds were coming from deeper in the crystal forest. More howls, but also other noises. Clicking sounds that might be from the tunnelers. And something that sounded like wind but wasn't wind at all. Sarah set up her basic camp in the valley. Unlike the other cadets who would build walls and set traps, she just put up her small shelter and started a tiny fire. She cooked some of her food and ate, while the crystal wolf watched from the tree line dawn as the alien moon's day cycle ended and strange stars appeared in the sky. Sarah could hear the sounds of battle from different directions. Weapons fire, explosions, and roars of anger. The other cadets were fighting for their lives against the local creatures. But in Sarah's valley, it was quiet except for the soft musical sounds the crystal wolf made as it lay down near the crystal trees. It was still watching her, but now it seemed more relaxed. Sarah looked at the extra food she had cooked. On Earth, sharing food was how humans made friends with animals. Maybe it worked the same way on alien moons. She took a small piece of her ration and placed it on the ground halfway between herself and the wolf. Then she went back to her fire and waited. The crystal wolf stood up, walked over to the food, and sniffed it carefully. After a moment, it ate the offering and made a sound that almost sounded like purring. "Wow," Sarah said to herself as she prepared for her first night on the hostile moon. "That's a start." Sarah woke up on her third day on Zarian 7 to the sound of pain. The crystal wolf that had been watching her camp was gone, but somewhere in the distance, she could hear a sound that made her heart hurt. It was a high musical cry that spoke of suffering, even though she couldn't understand the language. She grabbed her medical kit and followed the sound deeper into the crystal forest. The purple formations grew taller here, and the light that passed through them painted everything in shades of violet and silver. The crying sound got louder as she moved forward. Behind a cluster of crystal formations that looked like frozen flowers, Sarah found the source of the sound. A young crystal wolf lay on its side, and even from a distance, she could see something was very wrong. Part of its crystal body was dark and broken, and green liquid dripped from several wounds. Sarah's train kicked in. The smart thing to do would be to leave. Injured animals were dangerous, and this wasn't even an Earth animal. It was an alien predator on a moon known for killing cadets. But the sound it made was so full of pain that Sarah couldn't walk away. She approached slowly, talking in a soft voice. "Hey there, little one. I know you're hurt. I want to help." The young wolf tried to lift its head when it heard her voice. Its crystal eyes were dim, and Sarah could see that it was very sick. The green liquid was some kind of acid that was eating away at its crystal body. "Acid burns," Sarah said to herself, remembering her medical training, probably from the tunnelers. She set down her medical kit and opened it slowly. The young wolf watched her with eyes that seemed far too smart for an animal. When Sarah pulled out her scanner and pointed it at the wolf's wounds, the creature held very still, as if it understood she was trying to help. The scanner showed that the acid was still active and spreading. If Sarah didn't clean it off soon, it would eat through more of the wolf's crystal structure. She had cleaning solution in her kit that might work, but she would have to get very close to use it. "Okay," Sarah said, mostly to herself. "This is probably the stupidest thing I've ever done." She moved closer to the injured wolf. It made a soft musical sound that was different from its pain cries. The sound was questioning, maybe even hopeful. Sarah carefully began cleaning the acid from the wolf's wounds. The creature whimpered, but didn't try to bite her or run away. As she worked, she noticed something amazing. The crystal formations on the wolf's body were making soft music. Different notes came from different parts of its body, creating a simple but beautiful song. "You're trying to talk to me," Sarah realized. "These aren't just random sounds. This is language." She tried to copy some of the musical tones the wolf made. Her human voice couldn't make the exact sounds, but when she hummed a simple tune, the wolf's crystal body glowed brighter. It was responding to her attempts to communicate. The medical treatment took over an hour. Sarah had to clean each wound carefully and apply healing gel to stop the acid damage. The young wolf stayed perfectly still the whole time, occasionally making soft musical sounds that seemed to say, "Thank you." When Sarah was finished, she sat back and looked at her work. The wolf's crystal body was no longer damaged, and the dark spots where the acid had been eating away were starting to clear. The creature would need time to heal, but it would live. The wolf tried to stand up and almost fell over. It was weak from the acid damage and the pain. Sarah looked around and found a sheltered spot between two large crystal formations where the wolf could rest safely. "Come on," she said, gesturing toward the safe spot. "You need to rest somewhere the acid tunnelers can't find you." To her surprise, the wolf understood. It followed her slowly to the sheltered area and lay down in the soft sand. Sarah gave it some water from her supply and a small piece of food. The wolf ate carefully and made more musical sounds as the day went on. Sarah realized she couldn't leave the young wolf alone. It was still too weak to defend itself, and there were other dangerous creatures in the crystal forest. She moved her camp to the sheltered area and set up her equipment nearby. That evening, as Sarah cooked her dinner, the young wolf tried to stand up. Its crystal body was already looking better, and it could walk a few steps without falling. It came over to Sarah's fire and lay down next to her. "I should call you something," Sarah said. "How about Prism? Because of the way your body catches the light." The wolf Prism made a musical sound that seemed pleased. It began to make more complex music, and Sarah realized it was trying to teach her its language. Some sounds meant safe, others meant danger. The musical tones that came from different parts of its crystal body had different meanings. Sarah spent the evening learning Prism's basic communication system. She couldn't make all the sounds, but she could understand some of what Prism was trying to tell her. The young wolf was very smart. Much smarter than any earth animal Sarah had ever met. As they sat by the fire together, Sarah heard her communicator beep. It was a message from the Academy monitoring station. Other cadets were calling for rescue. The Xanthari had been attacked by tunnelers and was badly injured. The Draconi had fought off several crystal wolves but was requesting backup because more were coming. The message asked if Sarah needed any help or if she had encountered any hostile creatures. Sarah looked at Prism, who was sleeping peacefully by her fire. The young wolf's crystal body glowed softly in the firelight, and it made quiet musical sounds even while sleeping. "No problems here," Sarah sent back. "Everything is under control." She turned off the communicator and looked up at the alien stars. In the distance, she could hear the sounds of other cadets fighting for their lives. But in her small camp, a human and a crystal wolf slept safely together. As Sarah fell asleep, she thought about something her grandfather had told her when she was little. The best way to make a friend is to help someone when they need it most. She had a feeling this was just the beginning of something much bigger than a survival test. On the 5th day, Sarah learned that Prism was not the only intelligent creature on XERIN-7. She woke up to find Prism standing at the edge of their camp, making urgent musical sounds. The young crystal wolf was fully healed now and much more active. Its body sparkled in the morning light as it tried to communicate something important. "What is it?" Sarah asked, following Prism toward a section of the crystal forest she hadn't explored yet. Prism led her to what looked like a small hill covered in silver sand. But as they got closer, Sarah realized it wasn't a hill at all. The ground had collapsed, creating a deep hole. At the bottom of the hole, something was moving. Sarah looked down and saw one of the acid tunnelers she had read about. But it wasn't attacking or threatening. It was trapped under a pile of rocks, and from the way it was moving, Sarah could tell it was hurt. The creature was about the size of a large dog, with smooth gray skin that looked almost like metal. It had several arms that ended in digging claws, and its head was large with big eyes that seemed very intelligent. "It's trapped," Sarah said. "The cave-in must have caught it while it was digging." Prism made musical sounds that Sarah was starting to understand. The crystal wolf was telling her that the tunneler needed help, just like Prism had needed help a few days ago. Sarah looked at her equipment. She had rope and some tools that might work for a rescue, but getting down into the hole would be dangerous. If the tunneler felt threatened, it might spray acid at her. "This is crazy," Sarah told herself. But she was already tying her rope to a strong crystal formation. She lowered herself into the hole carefully. The tunneler watched her with large, dark eyes. When Sarah got closer, she could see that one of its arms was pinned under a heavy rock. The creature was in pain, but it wasn't trying to attack her. "Easy," Sarah said in the same soft voice she had used with Prism. "I'm here to help." The tunneler made clicking sounds. They were different from Prism's musical language, but Sarah could hear intelligence in them. The creature was trying to communicate with her. Sarah used her tools to lever the rock off the tunneler's arm. The creature made grateful clicking sounds and touched Sarah's hand gently with one of its free claws. Its skin was warm and smooth, not slimy like she had expected. Getting both herself and the injured tunneler out of the hole was harder than going down. The creature's hurt arm made it difficult for it to climb, but with Sarah's help and her rope, they made it to the surface. Prism was waiting for them, making worried musical sounds. To Sarah's surprise, the crystal wolf and the tunneler seemed to be communicating with each other. Prism's musical tones and the tunneler's clicking sounds created a kind of conversation. "You two know each other," Sarah realized. "You're not enemies at all." The tunneler, which Sarah decided to call Digger, stayed with them for the rest of the day. As its arm healed, it showed Sarah some amazing things. Digger could dig tunnels with perfect precision, creating smooth passages through even the hardest crystal formations. More importantly, the tunnels weren't random. They were part of a complex underground network that connected different parts of the crystal forest. "These aren't animal burrows," Sarah said as she examined one of Digger's tunnels. "These are engineered. You're building something down there." Digger clicked excitedly and led Sarah to a tunnel entrance. With Prism translating through musical sounds, Digger invited Sarah underground to see its work. The tunnels were beautiful and complex. They curved and branched like art, but they also served practical purposes. Some carried fresh water from underground springs. Others provided air circulation for the crystal forest above. The tunnelers weren't destroying the ecosystem, they were maintaining it. That evening, as Sarah sat by her fire with Prism and Digger, something else happened that changed everything. A shadow fell across their camp, but there was nothing above them casting it. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the alien moon's temperature. A shadow stalker was nearby. Prism and Digger didn't run or prepare to fight. Instead, they made welcoming sounds. From the darkness between the crystal trees, something emerged that made Sarah's breath catch. The shadow stalker was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to absorb light. Its movements were fluid like water, and its eyes were like stars in a dark sky. When it moved, shadows moved with it, making it almost impossible to track visually. But strangest of all, The creature seemed sad. It approached their campfire slowly, and Sarah could see that something was wrong with it. Its dark skin had pale patches, and its movements seemed weak. Prism and Digger made concerned sounds as the shadow stalker collapsed near the fire. "You're sick too," Sarah said, reaching for her medical scanner. The shadow stalker didn't run when Sarah approached. It lay still and let her examine it. The scanner showed something that made Sarah angry. The shadow stalker was poisoned. Its body was full of toxic metals that didn't belong on Zarian 7. "This isn't natural," Sarah said. "Something is poisoning your environment." The shadow stalker, which Sarah decided to call Shade, made sounds like whispered wind. With help from Prism and Digger translating, Sarah began to understand what had happened. The crystal formations and underground networks weren't just home to these creatures. They were part of a complex ecosystem that kept Zarian 7 healthy. But recently, something had been contaminating the system. The poison was in the water, the air, and the crystal formations themselves. Off-world mining, Sarah realized. Someone's been taking crystals from this moon, and the mining operations are poisoning everything. The three creatures made distressed sounds. Through their combined languages, they told Sarah that their people, because they were people, not just animals, had been trying to drive away the off-worlders to protect their home. The attacks on visiting cadets weren't random aggression. They were desperate attempts to keep destructive aliens away from their dying world. Sarah felt her chest tighten with anger. The Galactic Military Academy knew about this. They had to know. But they kept sending cadets to Zarian 7 for survival training while the moon's native civilization slowly died from poison. She treated Shade's poisoning with what medical supplies she had. But it was only a temporary fix. The real problem was much bigger than anything in her medical kit could solve. As the three alien friends rested by her fire, Sarah looked up at the alien stars and made a decision. She had come to Zarian 7 for a survival test. But she had found something much more important. She had found a crime that needed to be stopped. And three friends who were counting on her to help save their world. Tomorrow, she would start figuring out how to do exactly that. On the 13th day, with only hours left before the Academy ships would arrive for pickup, Prism led Sarah to a secret that changed everything. The young crystal wolf had been acting strange all morning, making urgent musical sounds and pacing around their camp. Digger and Shade seemed to understand what Prism was trying to say, but Sarah couldn't quite grasp it. Finally, all three of her alien friends surrounded her and began making their sounds together. Prism's crystal music, Digger's rhythmic clicking, and Shade's whispered wind language. Combined, their voices created something Sarah had never heard before, a harmony that seemed to reach directly into her mind. Suddenly, Sarah could understand them perfectly. Not just their basic communications, but complex ideas and emotions. It was like learning a new language instantly. "The old place," they were saying. "The memory place. You must see before the skyships return." Sarah packed quickly and followed her three friends deeper into the crystal forest than she had ever gone. They traveled for hours through tunnels that Digger had prepared and across crystal bridges that sang in the wind. Shade guided them past dangerous areas, and Prism's crystal body glowed to light their way. Finally, they arrived at a place that took Sarah's breath away. Hidden in a valley surrounded by the tallest crystal formations on the moon was a structure that clearly wasn't natural. It was made of the same crystal as the forest, but it was shaped into perfect geometric forms, towers and bridges and archways that reached toward the sky. "This is impossible," Sarah whispered. The Academy report said there was no intelligent life on Zarian 7. No cities, no technology, nothing. Her three friends made sad sounds as they led her inside the crystal structure. The interior was even more amazing than the outside. Walls covered in symbols that glowed with soft light. Chambers filled with crystalline objects that hummed with energy. And everywhere, The sense of great age and lost knowledge. In the center of the largest chamber, Sarah found something that made her heart race, a communication device that was still working. The device was like nothing she had ever seen, but somehow Sarah knew what it was. When she touched its crystal surface, it activated, and holographic images filled the chamber around her. The images told the story of Zarian 7's true people. They had once been a great civilization that traveled between the stars. Their technology was based on the living crystal formations that covered their moon. They had been peaceful explorers who shared knowledge with other species across the galaxy. But something had gone wrong. The images showed their civilization slowly failing. Their people becoming simpler, more primitive, their great cities falling into ruin. A plague, Sarah realized as she watched the holographic history. Something made them lose their intelligence, their memories, their ability to maintain their technology. The final images showed the last of the great crystal people as they became the creatures Sarah knew as Prism, Digger, and Shade. They had retained some of their intelligence and their basic nature, but they had lost the knowledge of what they once were. Prism made soft musical sounds, and Sarah understood. You remembered just enough to know something was lost. That's why you're so intelligent compared to regular animals. You're not animals at all. You're the descendants of a spacefaring civilization. But there was more. The communication device showed recent records, images of Academy ships landing on Zarian 7, mining operations stripping crystals from the living formations, and cadets being dropped for survival training. The Academy knows, Sarah said, feeling sick. They know what you really are, and they're using this moon anyway. Shade's whispered words translated into concepts Sarah could understand. The Academy had been coming to Zarian 7 for years, but not just for survival training. They were studying the descendants of the Crystal Civilization, trying to understand how they had lost their technology. And they were testing cadets to see which ones could recognize intelligence in unexpected forms. It's not a survival test, Sarah realized. It's a xenological aptitude test. They're looking for military officers who can recognize intelligence and form relationships with alien species. Digger's clicking sounds confirmed her understanding. Most cadets saw only hostile animals and responded with fear and violence. But a few cadets in the Academy's history had done what Sarah did. They had recognized intelligence and formed partnerships. What happens to the cadets who pass the real test? Sarah asked. The answer came through the combined voices of her three friends, translating information from the ancient communication device. Those cadets became part of a secret program within the Academy. They were trained as first contact specialists and sent to worlds where the galactic military was encountering new forms of intelligence. Sarah felt her hands shake as she understood the full truth. The Academy was using the descendants of a once great civilization as test subjects. They were strip mining the living crystal formations that were actually the remains of an ancient city. And they were doing it all while pretending that Zarian 7 was just an empty moon full of dangerous animals. That's why you attacked the mining operations, Sarah said. You're not being randomly aggressive. You're defending your ancestors' graves. Prism, Digger, and Shade all made sounds of agreement and sadness. Sarah's communicator beeped. The Academy ships would arrive in 6 hours to collect the surviving cadets. She had to make a choice. She could go back with the ships and probably be recruited into the secret program. She would become a first contact specialist, helping the galactic military deal with new alien species. It would be an important job, and she would be good at it. But it would mean leaving her three friends behind to continue being used as test subjects. It would mean staying quiet about the truth of what the Academy was doing to the descendants of the Crystal Civilization. Sarah looked at Prism, Digger, and Shade. They were watching her with intelligent eyes, waiting to see what she would choose. I can't leave you here, Sarah said. And I can't let them keep doing this to your people. She activated her communicator and began recording everything she had learned. The holographic history, the truth about the crystal civilization, evidence of the illegal mining operations, proof that the Academy knew they were using intelligent beings as test subjects. When she was finished recording, Sarah programmed the communication device to broadcast her evidence on all Academy frequencies. "This is Cadet Sarah Chun," she said into her communicator. "I have important information about the true nature of Zarian 7 and the Academy's operations here. All Academy personnel need to see this immediately." As her broadcast began transmitting across the galaxy, Sarah looked at her 3 friends. "I hope you're ready for a trip. We're about to become either heroes or the most wanted fugitives in the galaxy." Prism made musical sounds that somehow conveyed excitement and determination. Digger clicked rapidly in what Sarah had learned meant agreement. Shade whispered sounds that felt like approval. "Then, let's go show the Academy what real first contact looks like," Sarah said. The Academy rescue ships arrived at Zarian 7, expecting to collect exhausted, traumatized cadets. Instead, they found Sarah Chun waiting calmly at the pickup point with 3 alien creatures sitting peacefully beside her. Captain Vorth, the Coloran officer in charge of cadet retrieval, stared through his ship's viewing screen at the impossible scene below. "Scan those creatures," he ordered his crew. "I want to know if they're hostile." "Sir," his scanner operator replied, "they're not showing any aggressive behavior. In fact, they seem to be communicating with the human cadet." Sarah stood up as the rescue ship landed. Prism, Digger, and Shade stood with her, not as wild animals, but as companions preparing to meet new people. Sarah had spent the last few hours teaching them basic signals they could use to show the Academy officers that they were intelligent and peaceful. The ship's door opened, and Captain Vorth stepped out with 4 armed guards. He approached carefully, his multiple hands ready to draw weapons. "Cadet Chen," he said, his translator making his clicking language sound formal and cold. "Step away from the hostile creatures immediately. We'll handle the extraction." "They're not hostile," Sarah replied calmly. "They're my friends, and they're much more intelligent than your reports claim. Cadet, you've been alone on this moon for 2 weeks. It's possible you're suffering from isolation syndrome. These creatures are dangerous predators." "Watch," Sarah said. She turned to Prism and made a simple hand gesture they had practiced. Prism responded by creating a complex musical pattern with its crystal body. The pattern was clearly mathematical, a sequence that built on itself in ways that showed advanced understanding. Captain Vorth's guards raised their weapons, but the captain held up a hand to stop them. "What was that?" "Prism is showing you a mathematical sequence. Digger, your turn." Digger began clicking in a rhythmic pattern while using its claws to draw geometric shapes in the sand. The shapes were perfect and showed understanding of advanced engineering principles. "And Shade," Sarah continued. Shade moved around the group, its shadow-shifting abilities, creating patterns of light and darkness that clearly represented stellar formations, a map of the local star systems. Captain Vorth lowered his weapons. This is impossible. The Academy's reports clearly state that Zarian 7 has no intelligent life." "The Academy's reports are wrong," Sarah said. "And I have proof." She activated her communicator and played the recording she had made in the Crystal City. As the holographic evidence played, showing the true history of Zarian 7 and the Academy's cover-up, Captain Vorth's expression changed from confusion to shock to anger. "These allegations are serious. Cadet Chun," he said when the recording finished. "If this is true, it's true," Sarah interrupted. "And my friends here can prove it. They remember things from before their civilization fell. They can show Academy scientists technology that was lost thousands of years ago. Prism made musical sounds, and to everyone's surprise, the ship's communication system responded. Prism's crystal structure was somehow interfacing with the Academy technology. "Incredible," breathed the ship's technical officer. "It's accessing our computer systems directly. The integration is perfect. It's like our technology and theirs were designed to work together." Digger approached the ship and began examining its exterior with obvious understanding. The creature's clicking sounds and claw movements showed that it could see how the ship was constructed and could probably improve its design. Shade moved around the landing area, and suddenly the ship's long-range sensors activated without anyone touching them. Shade had somehow triggered the sensors using its natural abilities. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "we're getting readings on asteroid formations that we've never seen before." Whatever that creature did, it just boosted our sensor range by 300%. Captain Vorth looked at Sarah and her three companions with new eyes. "Cadet Chun, you're saying these creatures are the descendants of the ancient civilization that built the crystal formations?" "Yes, sir. And the Academy has been mining their ancestral sites while using them as test subjects. The survival test is really a xenological aptitude test to find cadets who can recognize non-human intelligence." As if summoned by Sarah's words, another ship arrived. This one was larger and carried the symbols of Academy Command. An urgent message came through on all frequencies. "All units, priority message from Academy Command. Cadet Chun's transmission has been received and verified. All mining operations on Zarian 7 are to cease immediately. A full investigation team is being dispatched." The new ship landed, and Admiral Kess emerged, a high-ranking officer from the Academy's command structure. She was a tall, elegant being from a species known for their diplomatic skills. "Cadet Chun," Admiral Kess said, approaching the group, "your transmission has caused quite a stir at Academy Command. Half the Council wants to court-martial you for interfering with classified operations. The other half wants to give you the highest honors for exposing a criminal conspiracy." Sarah stood at attention, but her three friends moved protectively closer to her. "I did what I thought was right, Admiral." "Indeed you did," Admiral Kess replied. "The mining operations you exposed were unauthorized. A private corporation had been bribing Academy officials to allow illegal crystal extraction. Your evidence has led to multiple arrests." She looked at Prism, Digger, and Shade with obvious fascination. "And these are the descendants of the original crystal civilization?" "Yes, Admiral. They've retained much of their intelligence and some of their ancestral memories. They could be valuable partners for the Academy if treated as equals rather than test subjects." Admiral Kess nodded slowly. "The Academy Council has made a decision based on your reports. Zarian 7 is being declared a protected world. All mining operations are permanently banned. And we're offering these three individuals full citizenship in the Galactic Alliance as representatives of their people." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. "What about the survival test program?" "Reformed completely. Instead of dropping cadets on a world to fight for survival, we'll be establishing a new program. Cadets will come to Zarian 7 to learn xenological contact protocols from you and your friends here." Prism made excited musical sounds. Digger clicked rapidly. Shade's whispered words somehow conveyed joy and hope. "There's one more thing," Admiral Kess continued. "The Council has decided to establish a new branch of the Academy, the Xenological Contact Corps. We'd like you to head the program. Cadet Chen, you've shown a remarkable ability to form partnerships with non-human intelligence." Sarah looked at her three friends, who all made encouraging sounds. "I accept, Admiral. But I have one condition." "What's that?" "Prism, Digger, and Shade come with me as equal partners, not as subjects or test cases. They're my friends, and we work together." Admiral Kess smiled, an expression that looked strange on her alien features. but somehow conveyed the same warmth that a human smile would. Of course, Cadet Chun, though I suspect they'll want official ranks in the new course. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the Academy's main auditorium, watching the first class of Xenological Contact cadets learn basic communication with crystal wolves. Prism had become an instructor, teaching young officers how to recognize intelligence in unexpected forms. Digger was working with the Academy's engineering course, showing them crystal-based technology that was revolutionizing ship design. Shade had joined the Sensor Research Division, where its natural abilities were helping create new methods of long-range detection. As Sarah watched her friends sharing their knowledge with eager Academy cadets, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Only humans," said Admiral Kess, joining Sarah at the observation window. Only humans would go to a death world for a survival test and come back with 3 new friends and a completely reformed Academy policy. Sarah smiled. "I think that says something good about humanity, Admiral." "Indeed it does," Admiral Kess replied. "Your species has a remarkable talent for seeing people instead of just aliens. It's a gift the galaxy needs more of." On the training ground below, a young human cadet was offering food to a nervous crystal wolf while Prism provided musical encouragement. The cadet was patient and gentle, showing the same instincts that had led Sarah to help an injured alien rather than leave it to die. "Admiral," Sarah said, "I think we're going to need a bigger training program." Admiral Kess looked at the scene below and nodded. "I'll start preparing the recruitment notices. Something tells me there are a lot more death worlds out there that could use the human touch." As Sarah watched more cadets successfully making contact with the intelligent creatures of Zarian 7, she thought about her grandfather's words. "The best way to make a friend is to help someone when they need it most." It turned out that philosophy worked just as well across the galaxy as it did on Earth. And somehow, that didn't surprise her at all.